Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the biggest show right now in Kenya, in Africa. It's called the Farm Drive Show here at Africa Farmers Media, where we connect, learn, and grow. I'll be your captain today, Brian Munda. And of course, you know what we do, how we do it. We always have a conversation, trying to bring in our own input, trying to think about things affecting us as farmers when it comes to post-harvest practices. And of course, today we might a little bit slide away from the main topic because this is a global thing I want us to talk about. It's something that did start actually in February, 2 months ago, of course. February, actually, if I want to be right, on 2nd, where of course we have seen a geopolitical war happening in between Ukraine and Russia. These two, man, they're very, very huge. They have so much that is going on in Ukraine in specific. There is a war happening in Ukraine. But today we're not concentrating on the war. We are concentrating on the aftermath of the war. And of course, even way before we can dive right into that conversation, I'm sure you'll want to know what's happening around Kenya today. And of course, today is a very sad day for Kenyans after the third President of the Republic of Kenya, Emilio Mwai Kibaki, of course, has left us today. So today is that day that we want to give our respect to the third President of the country, Mwai Kibaki, who did take, of course, take up the regime, of course, the instruments of power back in 2002, 2003. And of course, beyond that, he stayed there for first 5 years and then contested again in a very hotly contested election in 2017. And of course, afterwards, he did, of course, do his 5 more terms, of course, above the 5 initial term. And of course, now, he did retire according to the constitution. He did retire, of course, in 2013 when he handed over the instruments of power 10 years later. And of course, there's so much that has been said, so many condolences that have been given, so much has been said. And we'll be looking into that, knowing what leaders have said what. And of course, if you can remember, most of these leaders that have given their condolences were predominantly in the Kibaki government back in the day, from the 2002 year to the last year of the administration of Mwai Kibaki. It is a quite interesting day where, of course, also we are seeing boardroom meetings about the way forward for different political parties. Of course, political parties have also been given an ultimatum to finish up the primaries. And of course, we've also seen political alignments from different places. And one of the most hotly contested, of course, activity has been the Nairobi gubernatorial candidates, of course, from the Azimio One Kenya alliance. Of course, it's quite an interesting day also because so much has happened. They say a day in politics is like 1,000 years. Of course, in any other day, so much happens. And of course, yesterday how things were is not how things are. Of course, we'll also be looking into, of course, one of the stories from the courts, from the courtrooms, and of course from the corridors of justice, where one of the senators from the Rift Valley province, of course, I would want to think so, of course, have been summoned, not even summoned, but have been ordered to be detained after, of course, he decided to fail to attend the court, of course, a court session about hate speech, about a hate speech case that has been ongoing in the court. So much is happening today, but this will happen, of course, in our AOB which comes at the end of the show. But today, we want to focus on the geopolitical war that is happening in between Ukraine and Russia. Remember the intention of Ukraine back in the day when I would say back in the start of the year, of course, why it did attack or set foot in Ukraine was arguably, of course, according to President Putin of Russia, said that they are there for territorial integrity, to defend their territorial integrity. But then Ukraine has also been up and down trying to defend what they do. But, well, there's so much that's happening. But today we're not here to talk about politics. Today we're here to talk about the impact of this war on world security, world food security. Well, it is an interesting day because, of course, this comes actually close to one day after the World Bank did issue a warning that, of course, if this war continues, we're facing a humanitarian catastrophe, not just in terms of course, people who are going to be injured, displaced, immigrants and everything else. We're talking about agriculture, food security. Of course, an article written by BBC some time back, actually the day before, actually yesterday, did say that the president of World Bank is cautioning. Of course, once the president does of course give out statements, they do after deliberations internally, and of course after research and after proper analysis of the situations. They say that it is we are heading to a very catastrophic period if this war is not resolved in terms of food security. But why are we here? Why are we looking into a catastrophic future? Well, we are far away. Kenya is very many miles away from, of course, the fighting nations. But quite interesting, Kenya is not so far away in terms of repercussions of what will happen. And so far we have started feeling them. And once you look a little bit more keenly, you'll find out that first, the fertilizer prices are very high, Now, Russia is one of the largest, actually it's the largest, it's the largest manufacturer of fertilizer. And I'm sure this is going to be pulled up in just a few minutes. Russia is one of the largest suppliers, manufacturers and suppliers of fertilizer. And now you can think about we as farmers, we always hugely depend on fertilizers. It's the planting season. We cannot do without the fertilizers. And what this has happened is that the war has had some impact in terms of disruption of the value chain, in terms of production, in terms of exportation. And this is what we're going to explain this in just a few, because well, this war feels so far away from us, but then we're feeling the difficulties of this war. We can feel the impacts of this war. And of course, part of what is happening today is that also the world food commodity prices are hitting a very record high. I would say that, because according to statistics by different international organizations, they say, actually to be precise, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, it says that well, food index has risen by more than 24%. Even to add on that, the inflation on food has risen by more than 4%. Inflation is once inflation rises by even 0.5%, people do feel it. And now, right now, things have risen by even 30%. Just go look around. You'll find that the cost of living is quite interesting. It's very high. Above that, just go to any supermarket. I remember we're coming from a period where we've been creating memes about the high costs of cooking oil. But in order to understand this, this is what we need to talk about. Now, first, I want us to look into this. Now, a quarter of the global wheat exports come from Russia and Ukraine, which is the world's largest, of course, exporter and importer of exporter of the wheat product worldwide. These two do team up to create one of the largest exports of wheat. Just look around. I think you've eaten some chapati today. I think you've done something somewhere, and that involves some wheat. And it is very interesting what is happening to us. And as you can see, also Russia is one of the largest fertilizer producers in the world. Way above that, Ukraine is the world's largest producer of sunflower oil, and combined with Russia, it is responsible for more than half of the global exports on the same fuel. Now, so far, this is what is happening right now. Ukraine invasion has resulted in some suspension of commercial operations in Ukraine's port, hampering the exportation business of the country. Also, fertilizer prices have also been on a very high note right now. And as you can see, wow, the fertilizers have been very expensive, and the government has had to intervene. Way above that, it's not only in Kenya where it is the planting season. The planting season is here with us. Way above that, also in Ukraine, there is so much that is still happening. In Ukraine, it's the planting season. They call it the spring planting season. But so far, there's nothing much to say. So far, very little is happening in there. And some of this land has been occupied by, of course, it has been occupied by actually militia from Ukraine, from Russia. And way above that also, we also continue seeing the disruption of the export business. Now we want to look into this way. If you do disrupt the export business of a country which produces one of the largest, actually the largest producer of fertilizer in the country, in the world, sorry, the export of the same commodity is quite high, and it's going to be really, really hard. And of course, that's another slide, the same slide, just emphasizing on what is happening. 40% of the wheat and corn, of course, comes from Ukraine, and also which comes from Ukraine goes to the Middle East and Africa. Russia is also the world's largest fertilizer producer. Again, we also have to say that Ukraine is the world's largest producer of sunflower oil. And so you see your cooking oil is very, very expensive. And it is having so much impact on the global economic outlook. Remember, also we're coming from COVID. We're recovering from COVID, the disruption that was caused by COVID-19. And way above that, the world economy was trying to, of course, recover after a very, very hard period in between 2019 to 2021, 2 to 3 years down the line. Of course, world economies have been hit hard. And one of the impacts of this geopolitical war that is also happening is the fact that even the global economic outlook, which was projected to be something around 6%, has now been downsized by IMF to 3.6%. And this means that the growth that we did anticipate this year is really not the one that we are going to have at the end of the day. Because again, we're coming from a period where, as we have been saying, we're recovering from COVID. We have seen locally here, we have seen economic stimulus packages to cushion farmers against the rising cost of fertilizer, the rising cost of basic farm inputs, the rising cost of feeds, There's so much that has been happening. That's just Kenya. But way above that, the world, the world does not have an economic stimulus package. And what the world is surviving on currently is what you would want to think about as Mungu tu. Ni Mungu tu he's helping the economy survive, because first, the geopolitical war. Second thing, we're recovering from COVID, of course, which did take a very huge blow on even the manufacturing of fertilizers alone, even this production of wheat, so much. Even in that dependency, that heavy dependency on these two countries, still that was not enough to ensure that there was enough fertilizers, there was enough wheat that was produced, and actually, let's talk about even the issue of wheat alone. And this has always been my question. How many wheat products do we interact with every day? Asubuhi umeamka umekula mandazi yako safi, labda keki, labda umekula pancake, there's so much maybe umekula in the morning, ama hata chapati, and then lunch hour ukamua pia chapati ndo rahisi kununua pale nje, ama kupika, ama well, to be served next to you. Then above that, jioni kafika pia, maybe ukakula kitu kama chapati, maybe again, you came back home with a piece of cake for your family or yourself, right there. We were interacting with so many wheat products, so many of them, and it's really interesting that even these noodles that we do eat, even these we'll want to call them spaghetti, and everything around the same is also a wheat product, and wheat is one of the largest consumed product in the world, and now you can imagine what impact it's going to have, the war is going to have on wheat production in the next few months. Already we're feeling the pinch, pesa ya unga imepanda. Ukiangalia vizuri, pesa ya unga imepanda. Way above that also, pia pesa, or even the ability of the farmers in Ukraine to plant these spring, they will want to call it spring period, is also hard for them. They are not going to do so this planting season because some of these fields are occupied by the Russian, of course, militia. Way above that, it's also very clear that some land has to be affected. Manpower has been affected. The production process, the value chain has been affected. But as Africa Farmers Media, we're not going to comment much about, of course, the ongoing war, but we're looking into the impacts of the war that has happened so far, and that is happening currently as we speak, where it's really interesting what is happening now. As we say, a quarter of the global wheat exports come from Russia and Ukraine. A quarter from just two countries, from more than 54 countries in Africa. That's only one continent, and many other continents that are out there to harbor more countries. And right now what you're looking into is that a quarter of the global wheat exports come from just Russia and Ukraine. These two alone satisfy a quarter of the market, of the export market. Now 40% of the wheat and corn comes from Ukraine and goes to Middle East and Africa. Now 40% going to two huge continents. You can feel the impact. You can feel the impact of what is happening. And actually, we're going to even look further into what Kenya has always been importing from Ukraine, and so that we can know how much we have been affected. But beyond that, we also need to know that also food prices have gone up by 30%. And now the local farmer has been complaining about the fertilizer prices being high, because first, post-COVID economic recovery period, there has been a huge problem in the production of fertilizer because of some of the spots that were used that are normally used to, manufacture fertilizer fast, are not giving the best that you can produce. Second thing, some of the containers again that have been always used to transport fertilizer from these fertilizer manufacturing and producing countries some of them have been used as container houses. Above that, that shows that there's a wild shortage in supply of containers. One more thing is the fact that, of course, once the exportation business has been affected, of course, world sanctions, hey, wow, I won't lie to you. World sanctions are one of those things that hit a country really hard, really hard. Economic sanctions imposed, as you can see right there, economic sanctions imposed on a country do bring a country behind. Big time. They do bring a country behind, because what you've been working for some time, well, it's normally affected. And you can now imagine what really happens when a whole country is given economic sanctions from more than 5 countries, financially, you even talk about exports, even in terms of very many things that you can talk about. Now, one of the sanctions that have been given is the fact that they cannot export some of the commodities that they do provide. And that means that there's a shortage of the commodity that they bring into the market, which means that, of course, once the demand is constant, hey, and the supply has been affected, the world food prices are going to go high. The world fertilizer prices are going to definitely go high. And this is a war that we'll continue praying for. I think so. I think that's the best thing we could say. This is a war that we'll continue praying for, because they say that only in Egypt, a case sample of Egypt, actually, as I tried to pull up this one, a case sample of Egypt where Egypt now hugely depends on the imports from Ukraine and Russia in terms of sunflower oil, are really affected. Have really been affected. Of course, they highly wait for these. They highly depend on these. Actually, it's here. Egypt prices of wheat and sunflower oil have escalated due to the Egypt's reliance on Russia and Ukraine for 85% of its wheat supply. And wheat products in Egypt are really, really high. Of course, we will learn to think about the commodities. The number of commodities in such a country are really, really high. And well, that's just one country. You can think that's just one country. And then we're also looking at economic sanctions, as you've said, on Russia. Have also cut down on Russia's exports during further affecting the agri-exports value chain. And of course, even way above that, we've talked about the planting season. Fertilizer prices of urea fertilizer have jumped by 32% since the invasion began on February, while diammonium phosphate, or DAP, actually that's the meaning of DAP. DAP fertilizer prices will also be affected. I've been really affected by more than 13%, and that is just what is happening around us. Once we even look at in terms of the food commodities, that we are taking, they are really high too, because Kenya does import so much wheat, so much corn, also so much corn ni mahindi. I think kizungu ilikuja tu kutusumbua kidogo, lakini corn ni mahindi. And this is what is happening to us. Kenya imports so much, of course. Way above that, we also import so much sunflower oil, which also will tag along with also soya beans and everything else. We also it's quite interesting, but there I did find out that we also import carrots from Ukraine. Wow, that's over reliance, I would want to think. But well, that is what we can say about the current war situation, and we'll continue praying for such a situation to calm down. Once we take a short commercial break, we're also going to look into what Kenya does import from Ukraine and what we set to, of course, what you're set for in the next few days. Once this war continues, already international organizations are warning about the looming catastrophe in terms of food security in the world. If this war continues, it's going to be really, really hard for the world to continue being food secure. But then, way above that, today I have some good news for you who is noting some stress on your crops today. I'm sure you always get out there and you've always noticed something. You know how a crop does get stressed. As we are talking, we are suffering stress as human beings from the ongoing war, but even crops do get stressed. But because of that, we want to say that of course that with the ongoing war, with the ongoing rains that are going on right now, and of course some parts of the country are still waiting on the rain to still reach them, dry seasons right now. All we want to think about is that our crops are not going to be stressed by waterlogging cases, drought, and the lack of water. And one of the best products to ensure that your crops are not stressed, or even to bring back a stressed crop, is one of the best products is called the Mega KLP from Omnia Nutrology. What they say is that it does help your crop fast grow some good roots, some good root density in specific, and this ensures that your crop does pick up enough nutrients and water from the soil. It also continues to ensure that your crop does continue having continues with the process of photosynthesis, of making food, and of course way above that, it ensures that your crop is back in shape and you're a very happy farmer at the starting of at the end of the harvesting season. So all this product does promise you is that they do understand, of course, that your crop can get stressed, but they know how to bring it back to life and be a happy farmer at the end of the harvesting season. So this message has been brought to you by Omnia Nutrology. They say they understand the art of the science of growing. And of course, you can go ask for Mega KLP from Omnia Nutrology. Mega KLP, of course, is MEGA, and of course, stroke KEL, then P alone, Mega KLP. So actually it's not stroke but apostrophe. Yeah, so it's Mega KLP from Omni Nutrology. It does help you ensure that your crop is no longer stressed. Ask for Mega KLP from any agrovet near you, and also you can also go to their, of course, their social media platforms at Omnia Nutrology East Africa. About that, if kama uko hapo na una watch pia, one of the best things to think about is that you can drop a question that you want to ask about the Mega KLP, how it can be delivered to you, and how they can also help your crops even grow better and better during this period where we are receiving rains frost from left, right, and center. We take a short commercial break. We'll be back with more.
Melon is a trailing vine in the gourd family. The word melon can refer to either the plant or specifically to the fruit. Watermelon is a type of melon that is sweet and refreshing fruit. Watermelons can either be grown on home gardens for small-scale farmers or large-scale depending on the market demand. You can either transplant or plant watermelon seeds directly. For best performance, plant watermelons in hot, sunny locations with loose, fertile, well-drained soil that is rich in organic matter. It is best to plant watermelons on raised rows and ensure that the soil pH is between 6.0 to 6.8. On average, it takes around 3 months for a watermelon to grow from seed to mature fruit, with smaller varieties having shorter growing times than larger varieties of watermelon. Watermelon growing, if done rationally and on a scalable basis, can be a good source of income.
Beetroot is a highly nutritious root vegetable. The beetroot is the taproot portion of a beet plant. It is one of the many varieties of the genus Beta vulgaris, all of which are mostly grown for their edible taproots and leaves. Beetroot is a root crop that takes approximately 3 to 4 months to mature. Beetroot is a fairly easy crop to grow as long as the soil is well cultivated prior to planting. Beetroots do not enjoy wet, boggy or shady soils. Beetroot can be sown in trays and transplanted when the seedlings have 2 true leaves. Plant in full sun, space seedlings 10 to 15 centimeters apart, and rows 20 centimeters to 30 centimeters apart so they have room to grow. Beetroots are also ideal for containers or raised beds. Beetroots will happily thrive in small areas as long as there is at least 20 centimeters depth of soil. Beetroot has been used not only for food but also for treatment for numerous conditions.
Mahindi yamekuwa chakula kikuu katika sehemu nyingi za ulimwengu na jumla ya uzalishaji wa mahindi kuliko ile ya ngano au mchele. Mbali na kuwa mahindi ni chakula, pia hutumiwa kutengeneza ethanoli, chakula cha wanyama na bidhaa zingine. Kunayo mahindi ya gume, mahindi ya ganda, yaani popcorn, mahindi ya unga na mahindi matamu. Mahindi yanalimwa sana kote ulimwenguni na kiwango kikubwa cha mahindi hutolewa kila mwaka kuliko nafaka nyingine yoyote. Shamba la mahindi linaweza kutayarishwa kwa kutumia njia za kawaida au za kilimo cha uhifadhi. Kilimo cha kuhifadhi ni pamoja na kunyunyizia dawa za kuulia wadudu zilizopendekezwa na wataalamu wa kilimo. Unaweza kutumia trekta au njia ya mikono kufanya kilimo cha mahindi. Ni muhimu kuandaa ardhi mapema ya kutosha kuruhusu magugu kukauka na kuoza kabla ya kupanda.
A nursery bed is a small area of a yard or garden that's used for growing certain selected plants. The goal of a nursery bed is to grow young plants to a certain size at which they can be easily transplanted. A nursery bed can also be used to evaluate plants to see if they are worthy of planting in the larger garden, to observe their growth, habit and color, or watch them for pests and diseases. A nursery bed is especially helpful for vegetable gardeners practicing succession in planting, in which a steady supply of fresh produce is maintained.
Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the second half of this show. This is the Farm Drive show here at Africa Farmers Media. I'm your host, Brian Wanda, and today we've been talking about the ongoing geopolitical war happening in between Ukraine and Russia, the effect it has had on the world food security. Of course, above that, we've also been talking about the way forward, because the world has been affected. The economic outlook has been not so good. It was projected to be up to 6%, but right now it's something about 3.6% according to the IMF. And now things don't look so good, because they say it's because of the geopolitical war. They say wars do affect, of course, the world economy. And way above that, we also talked about the rising cost of fertilizers, the reason for that, and how Ukraine and Russia situation is leading to the high pricing or the escalating prices of fertilizer, and also fuel, some bit of fuel also. And how the Kenyan farmer now is being affected is this way. Now, once we talk about the Ukraine agri exports to Kenya, we talk about, of course, what Kenya did import from Ukraine. Starting with cereals, we've been talking about Ukraine and Russia catering for up to a quarter of the world's exports on wheat. Now, Kenya is one of those places and destination of wheat. Now, once you look at the statistics, wheat and maize, of course, was imported from Ukraine, worth 57.69 million US dollars. That's so much amount of money, because that amounts to close to 5 billion. It's close to 5 billion Kenyan shillings on wheat alone, wheat products alone, you can imagine. And once you go to grain, sorghum, of course, it's one of those commodities that we do use. Once tumenunua pale uji, part of the ingredients is always sorghum. And now, okay, part of what it did import from Russia was sorghum worth 133 shillings and 65 shillings, of course, on worth of US dollars, of course, in terms of imports. These caters for close to 10 million shillings on the same, actually close to 100 million to be specific. Hey, this to be specific, 100 million on the amount of money that was given on grain and sorghum import. Above that, also we're talking about corn and maize that was imported from Ukraine in the year 2021, actually 2021, where Kenya imported corn worth 1.72 million US dollars. Now this is up to 100 million Kenyan shillings, of course, 100 million Kenyan shillings. Now that is so much maize also from Ukraine. And this maize goes to different millers, of course. And once you talk about these different millers, we do talk about maize millers in specific. I'm trying to also think that some other of course, some other ends also do want to consume these maize whole, and even use it to manufacture animal feeds. Above that, also we talk about animals and vegetable fats and oils, cleavage products. Now, Kenya did import sunflower seed. Of course, as we said, it's up to actually 40%, up to 40% of this commodity that comes from Ukraine in terms of sunflower seed and everything around that goes to Africa, and Kenya is one of the destinations. So Kenya did import up to this commodity worth 375 million Kenyan shillings last year. So we are depending on Ukraine when it comes to some of these commodities, and we cannot think less about the same. Once we also talk about sugar and sugar, it's called sugar confitery. So we talk about vegetables, we talk about leguminous, shelled actually. That's interesting, whether or not skinned or split or dried. Of course, these worth something about 300 million, close to 375 million Kenyan shillings worth of course vegetables, sugar, and sugar confectionery. That's really interesting. But more of it is vegetables, leguminous, shielded. Yeah, actually, this time I got it right. Shielded, whether skinned or not skinned, or dried. So these were 376 million Kenyan shillings. So this is what we depend on Ukraine, and so much that I've left out, of course, during the creation of that slide. But this is part of why we need Ukraine and Russia, both countries. I don't want to anticipate, but I don't want to speculate. But Kenya has not picked a side on both, and some time back, of course, there has been some talk about Kenya not actively being involved in terms of decision making on any other way in the ongoing war. Yes, we do expect and we do anticipate so much from Ukraine and Russia, but also people are looking at it the other way, that yes, we have to lose this, but then we have to also maintain a country, and we cannot pick sides right now because both countries are doing good. That's what I'm trying to think. But of course, there's also what the government is also up to. But we cannot afford to pick sides on this because we heavily depend on the both for trade, and it's not the right time to talk much about this right now. Now, this is what has been happening according to Food and Agriculture Authority (FAO), which is which does look into the agricultural practice in the world and food that comes, of course, out of the agricultural practice. They say that, well, if this war is not resolved early enough, it's going to be more of a catastrophe. The future doesn't look so good, and this is a situation because if we're importing maize and wheat worth so much amount of money, we look at the wheat that we bought was up to 57.69 million US dollars. That's so much. Once you talk about corn, it's 107 million, 107 million Kenyan shillings. That's so much. Also, we can talk about, you can compare 5 billion shillings worth of wheat coming into the country, and now we're looking at a country where we do wait, and we wait for the supply of wheat from is not being affected, and they do not plan to plant anytime soon because the planting season is here, but they call it the spring planting season, but there is no planting going on. Some of these fields have been occupied by the Russian militia, and well, it's really interesting, and hey, we're looking at a future where in the next 7, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, we'll have exhausted, of course, the reserves in terms of trade, and we're also going to have there's some projection that we're going to have less wheat in the supply chain, and also this means that well, Kenyan farmers, what are you thinking? Because, well, if the country does import so much wheat worth 5 billion Kenyan shillings, 5 billion of wheat, well, and now it does face some problems, some challenges in the value chain. Well, why don't you farmers think about planting wheat in those places in those areas where you can accommodate wheat, and I'm trying to think, well, and maybe the market will be even better. One thing, if this war doesn't continue, is not resolved in time, you're looking at a future where the commodity price of wheat products is going to be really, really high. Really high. It's really going to be very high. And now you can imagine that, well, the future doesn't look so good in terms of the world food prices. And now the Kenyan farmer can think, wow, by the time 6 months, 7 months down the line, the African farmer should think twice that we should be supplying this wheat within the country. And some of these millers are going to a little bit suffer. They're going to suffer a little bit because of the same. In terms of quality, in terms of logistics, in terms of supply itself, the production, of everything that is happening. So we need to consider all these factors. We need to know that the market might be better in the coming days. The coming days, wow, the market might look better. And maybe it's our turn to African farmers. We can decide to tap into the opportunity that is there. And that's the much we can talk about today. We've talked about the fertilizer prices and why they've been high, and of course the recent intervention by the national government when that came to, of course, the world fertilizer prices being so high. The national government did come in giving up to 5 billion worth of subsidies on fertilizers. This meant that Kenyan farmers can continue planting. I know we have a set of challenges right now because you need to register. And of course, one of the best ways to register, go ask your local chief how you can enjoy, the subsidized fertilizers, because so far the agrovets are not offering that. They're just offering, where you can get the fertilizer is where the government is just offering from these cereal boards and everything around there. So, well, that is the much we can talk about today, and that is the effect of the Ukraine and Russian war on the Kenyan farmers. There's an opportunity, guys. I would say there's an opportunity. You can pick it up because the market will be affected in the coming days, in the coming months. That is much we can talk about today. But before, we can also take another short break and then come and close the show. Of course, one of the best things that you as a farmer need to do is always ensure that your pesticide is well used, ensuring that you always read the label. Of course, ensure that you read the instructions, and ensure that you're putting in the right quantities, and of course ensure that you have a protective gear when you're using this pesticide. Above that, always ensure that even when you buy this pesticide, you have it has some expiry date written on it. And then even way much above that, ensure that it has a batch number that that has been written on it because of traceability. You can trace the manufacturer and when it was done and why it is coming from, because of so much contraband goods out here. So that is the much we can talk about today. That has been brought to you by, of course, Markup and Unido. They say Daobora Mazobora. Well, actually, we're going to take a short commercial break. We'll be back as we look into now the AOBs of today, what has been happening. Of course, Kenya has lost the third president, Mwai Kibaki. We'll be looking into what leaders have said and, different sections of the political divide have said different things. And be looking into that. So we take a short commercial break. We'll be back with more.
Eggplant is a popular versatile vegetable that is glossy and purple in color. When it's cut, you will find a meaty white flesh dotted with small clusters of beige seeds. The unripe fruit is consumed as a cooked vegetable. Eggplant is a multitasker that can take on different and delicious forms. Eggplants are a great source of vitamins and minerals.
Celery is a marshland plant that comes from the same family as carrots and parsley. It has long, firm and pale green fibrous stalks and grows in bunches of approximately 8 to 10 centimeters. The stalks taper into leaves at the top. When planting celery, it's best to ensure that the soil is enriched with compost and with a soil pH of between 5.8 to 6.8. It is also important for celery to grow in moisture-retentive soil. Lastly but not the least, select a site that receives full and direct sunlight. Celery needs about 130 to 140 days to mature between seedling and harvest. Growing celery is generally considered to be an ultimate vegetable gardening challenge. It's easy to grow, but has very specific needs.
Very good afternoon, ladies. Actually, it's good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the final stretch of this show. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Farm Drive Show. Apologies for the little technical itch that we've had about the audio, but we're back, of course. And as I promised earlier on, we're going to talk about what is happening in Kenya today. And well, we are fresh off the conversation about the Russia-Ukraine war and how it's affecting the Kenyan farmers and the opportunity that is there. But now, right now, we're talking about what is happening today. Now, the news that has broken and has hit Kenya hard right now is that Mwai Kibaki, who was the third president of Kenya, has passed on. So, Mwai Kibaki, of course, was born back in 1931, November 15th, 1931. Now, the place of birth was Gatuyaine village in Othaya, Nyeri County. And of course, the head of state was given the instruments of power in the year 2003 to 2013, where he ruled for close to about 11 years. He was also the vice president during the Moi's reign from 1978 to 1988. He is also the husband of the late Lucy Kibaki and the father of three. More about the same thing about the late Mwai Kibaki, who is the third president of the country. We can also say that he launched his political career in early 1960s. Now, the long-term Kenya vice president and minister of during, of course, the Moi's era, was one of the longest serving vice presidents in the Moi's era. Now, he was fired actually in 1988, as you've seen. In 1963, Kibaki was elected as MP Donholm constituency, consequently called Bahati, and now known as Makadara in Nairobi. Wow! So you guys, if you never knew this, now you know that Kibaki was also an MP in Nairobi. Well, I didn't know that until today. But way above that, also he was a member of, in between 1960 and 1990, 30 years down the line, he was a member of the Kenya Africa National Union, which is called KANU, enye wanasema chama cha baba na mama. He's also the vice president, as we mentioned earlier, from 1978 to 1988. He's also MP for Othaya constituency during the same period. And of course, he has left us, and all we can do is be grateful. Now, in his condolence message, of course, President Uhuru Kenyatta said, as the late former president served the country, Africa, and the world, he's also remained a deeply devoted family man, avid golfer. Of course, Kibaki was a golfer right there, and honest friend to many. Above that, the president has said that President Mwai Kibaki will be accorded a state funeral with full military honor and protocol during protocols being rendered and observed. Now, the flag of the Republic of Kenya shall also be flown. We shall also be, of course, flown half-mast. And then, way above that, President has also said his declaration and love for the country and dedication and love for the country undoubtedly honored East Africa and of course the entire world. He leaves behind a more united and prosperous Kenya. Also, the president has also said that his motorcade, deputy president, CJ Kome, House Speaker, diplomats won't fly out of Kenya. Won't fly the Kenyan flag on motorcades from today until Mwai Kibaki's burial. In a statement, of course, that is what he said. Uhuru has also said on the 30th of December 2002, Mwai Kibaki was sworn in as the third president of Kenya. The late former president administration conceptualized and spearheaded transformation in critical sectors. This is what has been said. Also, President Uhuru Kenyatta said that may President Mwai Kibaki's family be comforted, his memories will be honored, and his examples will forever be emulated. So much that people can say. I see there's so much reaction that is happening here. We remember Kibaki for also the unbogable, phrase that was there back in the day. I remember I was young, but I did remember what he was saying. I remember me shouting unbogable in front of my folks, and well, I even never knew what that meant. So lastly, the president has also said that his dedication and love for the country undoubtedly honors East Africa and the entire world. He has left a very prosperous country, and so many people have said so much. And of course, Mwai Kibaki was also the head of state when also the current deputy president, of course the second after Uhuru Kenyatta, was also the Minister for Education and also the Minister for Agriculture right there. So much. Also, DP Ruto has also said that, Kibaki, when he served, of course, they did serve under so much, he has called him actually a gentleman. He says a gentleman has rested, but his dream abides. To the people of Kenya, I join you in mourning a truly unique and iconic Kenyan whose immensely rich and highly exemplary life has blessed us. So much has been said, of course, during the regime, of course, Kibaki had back in the day, in conjunction with the deputy president. But the deputy president calls him the gentleman. Of course, it was a bitter and sweet kind of relationship from 2007 to 2013, where, of course, Ruto was also part of the cabinet of the president Moi Kibaki. Also, the prime minister during the second term of Kibaki has also eulogized, saying that of course this is a man that they did serve with. He said that well, he has left the country being with so much stability. Of course, he said that he's going to mourn. He has mourned him, and he'll continue mourning him until it was also a bitter and sweet kind of situation that was there. And well, today is that day where we are seeing so much happening, so much being said. So many people have said so much, and well, today also in the same day above, the death of the former president, the passing on of the former president Moi Kibaki, also the one of the hotly contested counties have also been named, and have named the gubernatorial flag bearers. Now, in a statement that was confirmed by Raila Odinga, the Nairobi governor candidate is going to be Mr. Polycarp Igathe. Now, he will be deputized by Professor Kaloki, and of course, the senator candidate will be Edwin Sifuna. Timothy Onyonyi, who has been campaigning to be the governor of Nairobi under the ODM party ticket. Timothy Onyonyi has made a decision to step down from the governor's contest, and is going to defend his seat under the ODM party too. And of course, the women rep party ticket has been given to Esther Passaris. Now, as of course we've said, Tim Onyonyi will seek re-election as Westlands MP. Way above that, then of course politics is always there, and we'll continue talking about politics. Another story that has also broken in between the days is that Nairobi court has ordered police to detain Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei for failing to attend court session in a hate speech case. Of course, this was I remember back in the day a little bit, just a few days before, where there was some bit of drama in court when he decided to represent himself, and he was kicked out of the court. But still, he went back and laid his case, and well, now it is a situation where the court has now said, you know what, you've decided not to come, and now you're in contempt of court, and now you cannot be detained by the police. And so that is the match that has been happening. Of course, as I come to the close of this show, I will leave you with a feature about Pauline Kamwara. Now, Pauline Kamwara is an expert when it comes to beekeeping. She has done this for, I will say, 2 years so far. What started actually as a very simple idea for her, she went to Israel. She did notice how people do their stuff in there, and then she came here and noticed that, well, many people who do beekeeping ni wale wazee, you don't want to say so. Now, as a very young lady, she decided to venture into the business, and now she's doing so good. I saw her company, what she has been doing, and she's an expert who has been doing so much. We leave you with that feature, but of course, for today's show, I'll close it right there. I've been Captain Brian Mwenda. until tomorrow in the morning hours from 10 to 12 p.m. We'll be talking about the week in review, looking into different stories that have happened. So until tomorrow, we say continue consuming information. It's the difference between you and the farmer you aspire to be.
A bee only lives for about 4 weeks, and the queen bee can live between 2 to 4 years, and then they die.
Do I call you Queen Bee or Pauline?
Queen bee. Queen bee. Queen bee will do, yeah.
All right, why Queen Bee?
Queen bee, because I believe I was the first woman in Kenya to start a beekeeping company and to go into commercial beekeeping. And as a queen, I'm inspiring more and more workers to join the beekeeping industry. So I became the queen of the industry.
You've absolutely mastered the art. Now let's talk about perception first. You're a lady. Beekeeping has had a perception out there that it's for, well, the elderly. But you've come in and, well, as you said, you can earn a living out of it. What have you done in terms of perception? What can we do as farmers in terms of perception first?
First of all, we need to appreciate what farming is. And that's what I appreciated what farming is. And one of them was, I looked at the gap in the industry and I saw beekeeping. Young people are not taking it up, and more so women are not taking it up, because if you look at it, the perception is beekeeping is for the old people and it is for men, and up to date some communities still take it as a taboo for a woman to keep bees or to engage into beekeeping activity. So that gap being there, and having the knowledge of what modern beekeeping can do, and having traveled in other parts of the country and I've seen what other women are doing as beekeepers, I thought, why not bring the same into our country? You see, we travel for different purposes, for recreation, for learning. I made it a habit that whenever I travel somewhere, I've got to come back with something new. And this time when I traveled, I came back with beekeeping, women in beekeeping, and my company, Apiculture Venture, was born from that. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. In order to change the perception, you had to get a little bit of more of exposure, knowledge, and information. What did you learn out there? And you thought, wow, is it the right time I come back home and do something?
For one, I worked with somebody here in Kenya who was doing with beekeeping, but I was in the office, I was in the administration, I wasn't in the field. So when an opportunity came for me to go to Israel to go and just see what they do in beekeeping, I was so happy.
And Pauline, once we talk about the market and a sure market, contract farming is one of those things that farmers have always been given as a solution to, a ready market, quote unquote. But then we have seen stories coming out of contract farming. You offer contract farming, and I'm trying to think as a farmer, convince me, after all that perception I've had out there, why should I still hold on to contract farming?
Okay, contract farming is one of the most tricky activity or agreement you can get into.
Yes.
Hence the reason why, as Apiculture Venture, we've come up with at least 3 different types of contract farming that we engage our farmers in. So to engage our farmers, first of all, is the approach that we take towards the contract farming. And one of the contract farming models that I've seen working so well with beekeepers is the one whereby we as Apiculture Venture, we take up the management. We do not ask for any money for managing this, but we will take a percentage of the produce of whatever we produce as per the agreement that we've signed with the farmer. This then the farmer is assured, not every time I want to come to your farm, I want 10,000, I want 20,000. No. I spend my own skills, my own technicians come to the farm, or I'll come myself. We make sure we take care of these beehives up to harvesting, and then when the produce is ready, we go back to the contract. What had we agreed on? 20, 30, 40, 50%. We get our percentage, then we pay you for the balance. That one has proved to work because it's a win-win situation. The equipment is yours, the land is yours, but the management and the market is up to me, so you're assured. And we've tried as much as possible to make it work, unless now the farmer is the one who comes and terminates the contract. Another way we've made it for contract farming to be able to work pretty well is whereby we give you hives. and then the percentage of these beehives is recuperated through production. So that way of contract farming is able to work. Here you see the farmer gives us the land or has the land. They pays 50% for the equipment, and the other 50% is actually recovered through contract farming. So you see, through that we are able to support more farmers to get into beekeeping by indirectly financing them. That is giving them 50%, and then the other 50% is recovered through the produce. So in that case, we ensure that we train you properly so that the production is up top notch, so that we as a company are able to also recover our percentage of the money that we've given you indirect through the produce that you've harvested.
Lastly, on the market, what's our hugest, I would say, what's our biggest consumer of our local honey right now?
I'm saying the middle class is catching up. Everybody's getting cautious about their well-being, about nutrition. Food and nutrition is one of the also big four agendas. Everybody, initially honey was taken to be for the high class, but the middle class consumer and even the lower class and even the people in the lower cadre, they are taking up consumption of honey, and that's why you'll see our packages range from the person who can afford the smallest to the person who can afford the largest. So honey consumption is really gaining momentum, and you get countries like in the Middle East, as long as you're able to meet the quality they want, for sure your product will not stay. You'll be able to sell to them, and that's why you see when I get into contract farming, I really have to train my farmers well so that they meet the required standards, so that I'm able to then produce this honey and export it. And that's why I came for this launch today. If you look at this launch today, it was about tech. Everything is going tech. We need to get our farmers also to get into technology of knowing, when did I install these beehives? Did I feed my bees? Did I treat my bees? What was the weather pattern? What crops were growing around? And all this can be achieved through the tech that was launched today, if we work into partnership with them and also bring our farmers on board to be able to be part of this tech.
Pauline, lastly, surprise us something about bees we don't know.
A bee only lives for about 4 weeks, and the queen bee can live between 2 to 4 years, and then they die.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, Pauline. You've been very instrumental to us when talking about bee farming, and all the best in your venture. They can find you where?
We are located on North Airport Road in Nairobi, Embakasi Road. We are just the first next to Coca-Cola. If you come next to Coca-Cola Bottling Company in Embakasi, that's where you'll find us. And you can also just drop us an email on info@apicultureventure.co.ke, or you can also call us on 0722 582033, and we'll gladly answer all your questions in regards to beekeeping.
All right, thank you very much, Queen Bee. All the best in your venture.
Thank you.
All right.